You're listening to X-Posure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Jamie T with 90s Cars. It is the opening track to the new album, The Theory of Whatever, which has just come out, and I'm very pleased to say that Jamie T is sat in front of me here in the studio. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, John.
It's great to see you.
Good to see you too, yeah.
Thanks so much for coming in. Really excited about the new album, the 5th Jamie T album.
Yes.
And a long time coming, a long time in the making, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's 5 years or 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
But I'm assuming you didn't spend all that time making music.
Well, I mean, you say that. I mean, I'm pretty. I work quite hard, so let's say 3-4 days a week.
Yeah,
but, you know.
Well, I heard
that rubbish. You know,
it's something like 180 songs or something.
Something like that. I mean, I work a lot. It's just in my daily routine to go and write something and do something. So, with that in mind, doing something, it comes up with 180 ideas. It doesn't mean they're finished songs.
Yeah, sure. Know. But kind of some of those ideas whittled down into 13 songs, 90s Cars being the opening track on the album. And one of the things that struck me after a couple of listens was the familiarity of it, in that it reminded me, and then I realised, hang on a minute, this is Kangaroo, originally by Big Star and then reworked amazingly by This Mortal Coil in the 80s. And I think you've now reworked it into your song.
Yes, I have, yeah. Was originally I originally sampled the This Mortal Coil version, but unfortunately wasn't able to use that, so I ended up singing it again, which actually I think was I think the track's actually probably, I listened to it yesterday, I think it's probably better that I sung it in the end actually, because I don't know, I think it actually sounds better, so it was a blessing in disguise maybe.
Yeah. Oh, no, totally. It works really, really well, but it becomes your own song. I mean, it is your own song. I mean, who else sings about sell-by dates in 90s Cars? Well, what's that all about?
I'm not quite sure. I can't quite remember. It was, you did ask me something the other day, didn't you, about that, whether it's to do with cars. So me and Tom from Audio Bullies, who did the chat with me, is a great one for cars anyway, and I'm a big fan of Audio Bullies, and something about the two, I love the glamour of the 90s cars, really, to be honest, and I think we were talking about it that day when we did it, and that's why I ended up in track. Yeah,
interesting, because it has a quite a moody quality to 90s Cars. And it's also got this yearning quality to it as well, which is really interesting. And one of the last times I saw you was a few years ago. We bumped into each other at a Yalla night at the Bermondsey Social Club.
That's right,
in South London, and we were having a chat, and you said, it's kind of weird because I was walking down the road and I bumped into Tom from Audio Bullies, and now we're working together.
Oh, did I? Right.
Yeah,
wow.
You mentioned that then, and so that was just something that was going on then. Now that might be like 3-4 years ago, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean we're solid friends. I went and saw Tom play a DJ set the other night. He hasn't played either in many years, and so we're both kind of coming to some kind of moment together, side by side, in a lovely way. And had a wonderful night. I mean, I see him like once or twice a week. We still do music together all the time. It's just we always end up back at one of our houses, and he'll play something, and before you know it, we've got headphones on. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I have a wonderful relationship with that man.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm really excited that he's making music again.
It's exciting. I'm very excited to hear it come out.
Yeah, excellent. So the Old Style Raiders is the next song. It's our first taste of this new album, the first single, and an instant anthem, I would say, judging by the Glastonbury performance, because you played it there.
Yeah.
I watched it on the telly. The whole crowd was singing along, even though it's only been out a few weeks, which is a good sign.
It's always a good sign.
Yeah, a very good sign. So it's kind of an instant anthem.
Well, I don't know if I call it that, but I hope so. Yeah.
So, what's an Old Style Raider?
Well, the reason it's called Old Style Raiders is because I was looking for it's very boring. I was looking for something to call the saved track, so I remembered it, and I was wearing a cap that was an Old Style Raiders cap, so I called it the Old Style Raiders, and it's just stuck. So I'm sorry, it's very boring. Really.
No, I love that. It's like an aid, a memoir or something, and then it becomes the title of the first single from the album.
It's just so I can remember what it's called, because quite often if I call the track, I Love You 56, or Great Idea 3025, it normally doesn't stick in my head, and I can lose the track I can lose it in my computer memory.
Yeah, sure.
On my hard drive.
Yeah, when you're going back to search for that song,
You just can't remember what it's called.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, nightmare. And such a big sing along as well. It was really interesting to see the crowd going crazy to this, and singing along. Because it's interesting with your words, because you write so many hooks within your songs. There's so many little catches of melody that really get stuck in people's heads.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the words, I personally can't necessarily word them all out, and yet there they were. 10,000 people or something all singing along to this song that had only been out a couple of weeks. Do you think they all make up their own version?
Probably, yeah. I do.
Excellent. Hard to find something to love in life, is that what?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So it's like another search. There's a searching quality to all the songs on this album.
Do you think so? Yeah,
I think so.
It's a song about. I like to think of it as a song about hope and trying to find a version of yourself that is able to love something. And I think that's a nice. To me, that feels like a nice concept.
Yeah.
Positive thing.
Yeah, totally. And we're going to hear that positivity now. This is the Old Style Raiders. It is Jamie T on Radio X. It is Jamie T on Radio X. It's Exposure. I'm John Kennedy, and that is British Hell. It's the third track from the new album, The Theory of Whatever, which has just come out. And Jamie's here tonight, talking us through it track by track. So British Hell, we're living through it, Jamie. Possibly. Interestingly, this is another use of a sample, is it?
This is, as well. This, you know what? I can't actually remember at the moment if the sample's in there. I think it is in there. But it's a Misfits sample of a song called London Dungeon. I'm a big fan of Misfits, and I kind of believe that the Misfits wrote a song called London. I believe, anyway, that the Misfits wrote London Dungeon about being on tour in England and kind of hating it.
Right.
So they wrote London Dungeon. That's what I perceive the song as, anyway. But we ended up sampling them, and for the chorus of it, and I was in the studio on a very hot day and decided to call Frank Carter of Rattlesnakes and Gallows fame. And he picked up the phone in a very frank kind of way. Nice to speak to you after 3 years, Frank. What? I was like, would you come down to the studio and record it? He went, yeah, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Came around in 15 minutes, recorded it, and then I was like, right, I've got to go. Talk to you later. And that was it. It was really lovely. So it's got Frank on it, and also it's a Misfits tune, so and obviously I'm on it as well. So it's a real, I don't know, eating its own tail.
Yeah. I mean, it's true punk rock. It's got this whole punky element, but also there's a kind of almost a reggae thing going on there. There's a kind of rap element to it as well. Which bits of Frank is Frank singing on the chorus?
Frank's singing on the chorus, yeah. Keep us in this British hell. There, that's right. So yeah, he's there, and then I'm on the verses.
Yeah. And it's great how he immediately came to mind. When you picked up the phone.
Yeah, I've always loved Frank. Frank's always, I remember meeting Frank on a street at South by Southwest. We were both kids. I think he was being courted by record labels as I was at the time. It was a very strange and lonely, excruciatingly pressurized moment when people are asking you to do things and you don't know how to write an email. And I saw Frank on the street. He just winked at me, and I winked at him, and then we've been friends ever since.
Right.
I think we've both kind of gone through careers at the same time, so it's wonderful to be able to build a chat with him in the end, and I hope he'll come and do it live with me at some point.
Yeah, that would be a moment, wouldn't it? In November, at Ali Pally. When that would be.
I'll ask, but you never know. I'll ask.
I think he'd be up for it. I think he'd really enjoy that. Yeah. And British Hell. I mean, it's such a great title. It conjures up so many different images. What's your version of British Hell? What's going wrong?
It was written about around the time of when Brexit was happening, really, and stuff like that, and I just thought it was pretty insane that not to call people insane who vote for Brexit or anything like that, but there is something insane about people voting for Brexit who live abroad under a
right,
who are living in Europe, right, and being like, yeah, we don't want, we want Brexit. It's like, you're not going to be able to live here. Are you what's the lunacy going on here? Do you not understand you're not going to be able to live here. You're going to have to go back to I'm watching these programs and stuff about stuff like that. I just thought it was mental. And, you know, so the whole song's about closing yourself off as a country and becoming a small island again, and what that means, you know, and what our culture is in concerns to being Little Englanders, you know, and we have cut ourselves off and now we have to live in our little British hell, and that's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's what you've done, so let's do it. Let's do it, baby. I'm in.
And here we are. We're enjoying every moment. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the great and interesting things about how you work and how you write is your use of local references and the way that you refer to things both in your own life, but you know, that are part rooted in the UK and rooted in South London. You know, and the terror of Lambeth Love is the next song. You know, and not many people put Lambeth in a song title. You know, I can think of doing the Lambeth Walk. Which is
I know that, but I don't know that.
It's like a century ago or something.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, but this song is great. So it has a really great downbeat, trip-hoppy, almost tricky darkness to it, I think.
Well, it's an interesting story to me anyway, this one, because my good friend, Charles Watson, who used to be of Slow Club fame, him and Rebecca, who's now of Self-Esteem fame.
Yeah.
Used to be in a band together, if no one knows, called Slow Club.
Yeah, they've both been interviewed in this very room.
Right, have they? Yeah,
Exposure,
I'm sure they would have been. But I was a big fan. I went on tour with them for many years, on and off, and they've both become Slow Club as a thing for me. Were very personal love. I love them. I love them both for different songwriting reasons. But Charles, I'm a very big fan of, and he had a song on his last album called Now That I'm a River, which I wanted to learn because I was thinking about covering it. But Charles' songs, he's an incredibly good songwriter and musician. So I was like, Charles, I can't work this song out. Can you send me the parts so I can So he kindly sent me all the parts, you know, singular tracks, the guitar track, the backing vocal track, everything on Logic. And I was trying to learn the song and I still couldn't work it out. So I then, for some reason, had a few beers and then decided to pitch the whole song down from 120 or 130 BPM or something to 70. And so the whole song, if you listen to that song, is actually all the backing tracks, all the backing vocals, pretty much. It's actually Charles's song, Now That I'm a River, and I'm just singing over it, a pitched down version of it.
Wow.
Which is just interesting, you know. And so I started to use that quality, being able to know quite a few musicians. It hasn't quite worked out as well as that ever again, but to be like, give me your parts. So I'm sampling all these indie guys now, give me your parts. So I'm very fond of that song because I love Now That I'm a River by Charles Watson. And I also am very fond of the song I wrote, and I know Charles is fond of it as well. I don't think he expected me to have done something like that, and he's very graciously let me use it.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating because it's completely upended his song, and turned it into something completely different. And it's interesting that way of working, finding inspiration in something, but then mangling it completely.
I can hear his version in my version. I can hear it, and also his wonderful recording of it. You know, he works in Paul from Hot Club de Paris and stuff's playing bass on it, and they're all such good musicians that all the parts are just doo-wop bliss. So to be able to work with things like that, you have the best of. So when you pitch them down, they really sound great. You know, if I pitched one of my bass lines down, it'd sound like rubbish. So you know, you're working with great musicians. So. Thank you, Charles, for letting me do that.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing because it means that on your record, we're not just getting Jamie T, we're also getting Charles Watson, Paul Rafferty from Hot Club de Paris. Yeah. It's like a cast of thousands, but just...
Yeah, I know, it is. And I love that for that,
yeah,
you know.
It's totally brilliant. Excellent. We're going to hear it now. The Terror of Lambeth Love. Jamie T on Exposure, Radio X. You're listening to Exposure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Jamie T with Keying Lamborghinis. It's the fifth song on the new album, The Theory of Whatever, Jamie's fifth album, which I'm playing tonight in full, and Jamie himself is here with me, talking us through it track by track. So Keying Lamborghinis came out as part of Record Store Day on a nice piece of 10-inch vinyl, and I love the whole sound of it. It sounds like John Carpenter films, or kind of the electronic side of 80s hip hop, or something like that. And I think this is another collaboration with Tom from Audio Bullies.
That's right. Tom from Audio Bullies, especially in that regard, brought the 80s hip hop thing to it, really. Before that, it was kind of a bit more of an acoustic-y thing, or it felt a bit more organic. And then Tom actually stole it off me without telling me that he took it, and he kind of, I basically put a really vintage 80s drum machine on it and put a new bass line on it, and the whole song just changed direction completely. It just changed genre. So I got to thank Tom for that. Before that, it wasn't as good. But it's funny how just a bass line and a drum beat can suddenly turn a track into a completely different kind of thing, beast or whatever.
Yeah. It has an underlying menace in a way. I mean, maybe that's from the title alone, Keying Lamborghinis. There's the sense of violence that suggests, possibly people getting revenge on somebody's car, possibly,
right.
Or just on a whole class of people. And it's interesting because you mentioned oligarchs in it, and there's a few references on the whole album which seem quite prescient in terms of what's going on in the world now, and the way that the presence of Russia has grown this year because of the Ukraine invasion, and our understanding of that whole world and that kind of moneyed existence and its effect on London, and is that something that you've come across? That we're a part of. Yeah,
we are a part of. You're both in that kind of thing. You're both shaking hands with each other. So we are a part of that as well. It comes from a couple of Christmases ago. My ex-girlfriend used to work for a company that did high-end polished finishes, and so would quite often work in these very, very, very big houses in Chelsea when they were being kind of done up. And we were walking around there at Christmas because it's a wonderful place to kind of have a nice late night walk after a dinner. It's very Christmassy. All these houses look very Christmassy. She said she was like, I work on these houses and nobody lives in them. I was like, nobody lives in them. They're here because they're all houses to do with money laundering. And it kind of stayed in my imagination as a concept, that this whole place, is empty. And I actually read something recently about the population of Chelsea has not gone up in 15 years, and they can't work out why. It's because nobody lives there.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So that's kind of it's partly where the song came from, anyway. So that's, But as I say, we're all in that handshake.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, with so many of the songs from Keying Lamborghinis, we go to St. George Wharf Tower, and we're looking at the psychogeography of London, in a way. Part of it, the way that you set these songs in specific places or reference specific places.
Yeah.
We're getting a sense of the many layers of society, that you're encountering possibly on your travels around town. The different kinds of people you meet.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a songwriter, right? So no one should ever budge on the fact I just, sit in a room. I'm no more travelled. I'm probably less well travelled than anyone else because I've toured the world at least twice or three times, and all I've seen is pub toilets and sweaty clubs. You know what I mean? But I try and take everything in and try and be a sponge to things, and sometimes it comes out, in songs.
Yeah,
I don't profess to be any more knowledgeable than anyone else on any of these things.
Sure, I understand. But I mean, I always think it's a great thing because it kind of anchors some of the songs in a way, in the same way that, say, Chuck Berry sang about Route 66 or wherever, and lots of different place names are conjured up, and they seem colourful to some people's minds, and then for other people it's like, St. George Wharf Tower, I think I know where that is, and that road, A road, that A road, I think I might have driven down there. Yeah. So I mean, there's all those specifics as well, which I really like. I mean,
I like that. I mean, I always like Tom Waits for that. Was quite one for doing that as well. And as you're right, it anchors you and it gives you some port of call in your imagination.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really varied record. So we've got these rockers, we've got these kind of almost trip-hop and hip-hop type things, and with St. George Wharf Tower, we've got an acoustic ballad.
Yeah. I'm really happy with that song. I'm not quite sure how I managed to get it sounding quite how it does, and I'm really fond of it. Just, I don't know, I like the way of singing on it, and I just like the feeling of it. I like the video as well.
Yeah.
So all ended up really good, and it's not often. I think most of my videos are rubbish, so it's nice to get, when you get a good one, you're like, oh my god.
Well, it's got a great melody as well, this song, and a lot of the album was recorded at your kitchen table. Is that right?
A lot of the out recorded. Well,
some of it.
Most of it was recorded in my house. Yeah,
right.
I've got a room upstairs. I really have a simple like setup, really. Just computer, mics, a compressor, and like 4 guitars. I had to do, and a little keyboard. I do everything on there, really. You know, as I say, Hugo Maccabees or Tom might take a song away and give it that, 10% more that I can't give, because I don't really know what a compressor is. But most of it's done just me on my own in a room.
Yeah. And St. George Wharf Tower seems like the prime example.
It was absolutely done with just me on my own in a room.
Yeah, it has such a great intimate feel to it.
I always think it reminds me a bit. I was very much inspired by "I'm Not in Love" by 10cc on it.
Yeah.
I remember the synths in the background, that are kind of breathy vocal synths. I'm a big fan of 10cc, and I was kind of trying to do something like that.
Excellent. We're going to hear it now. This is Jamie T with St. George Wharf Tower on X-Posure Radio X. It is Jamie T on X-Posure Radio X with 1,000,001 New Ways to Die. It's the 7th song on the new album, The Theory of Whatever. I'm playing you the whole thing tonight. I'm John Kennedy. Jamie T is here with me, and another rocker to wake us all up after kind of getting intimate and with some balladry, kind of all those punk roots of yours. That you'll never shake them off, I think, which is a great thing, I think.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know kind of what sticks and what doesn't in the end. Some of them come out in the wash, don't they? I suppose.
Yeah. Who plays the guitar solo at the end of that?
At the end of what? Which one?
1,000,001 New Ways to Die.
Oh well, I don't know. It's either me or Hugo White. And it depends on. It's me. It's definitely me. It's definitely me. I wouldn't have let Hugo do that.
So, I mean, you worked with Hugo White, who's an old friend, obviously from the Maccabees, and he's the overall producer of the record. So some of it was recorded in your space. Some of it you took into a studio with other musicians. I mean, on 1,000,001 New Ways to Die, is there just you and Hugo, or who's playing drums?
It's mainly just me and Hugo, but Hugo did go into a studio. I think he went down in Moloko, in the pool in Moloko, with Jamie. Jamie's down in Stereophonics, but I know Jamie from the Noise X.
Yeah. So this is Jamie Morrison.
Jamie Morrison, who's also now in
86 TVs, who we saw the other night. So the cat is out of the bag. If you've been wondering what Felix White and Hugo White have been up to, well, they've been working with their brother Will White on a new band, and Jamie T and I were lucky enough to go and see them, and Jamie Morrison is playing drums.
Yes.
And they were fantastic.
They were fantastic. Yeah, it's very exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, really exciting. And I'm amazed. We're talking to a few people that night who are close friends of the Whites. Not many people actually heard any songs, so the majority of the people at O'Meara, where they were playing, had never heard a note.
Yes, it's true. Yeah,
which was kind of impressive, and the songs were really impressive as well.
Yeah, he's a very mysterious human being at times. I only heard the songs when I was on my way to an interview with you a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and we're suddenly in the back of the car. He goes, "Would you like to hear some of it?" I was like, "Yeah." So he put it on the laptop. It was the first time he's played it to me in 3 years.
Wow! And you've been seeing him a lot because you've been working on this record.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Jamie Morrison plays on 1,000,001 New Ways to Die.
Yeah, she plays on quite a few of them actually. He's a wonderful drummer. I've knew that since Noise X days.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was helpful enough. I think him and Hugo went in the studio for like a week and just ran through it all. I was really not around at that time because I was getting in the way, so I let them kind of do their thing. And I love it. Yeah, I was a bit I've never really done that before. I normally do all the drums myself on MIDI stuff, so I was a bit, worried about that. But it turned out wonderful. I'm really glad they did it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds great. And then you follow that with Thank You, which couldn't be more different, really. And this starts really simply, just with a kind of strummed acoustic guitar and some kind of atmosphere. And then it kind of builds up. And we kind of go on a taxi ride with you, in a way.
Yeah, it's what's this? Well, it's a song about being called an Addison Lee, really, I suppose, or trying to becoming. What's it called? I don't know how to put it really. Becoming like a driver for your girlfriend and her mates to go out and have a good time, and you're just always the one who's to pick them up.
Right.
It was the kind of story, the premise of the story.
Right.
And her mates just being, not being able to pronounce your name, so they might as well call you Addison Lee. It's just a bit of a tongue-in-cheek fancy. It was done with Matt Maltese,
right?
Who's a good friend of mine, and we actually, funny enough, wrote another song originally, which Tom from Audio Buddies reminded me of yesterday, but it turned into Thank You. But we spent a day or two together writing lyrics and sitting the piano. And it was just he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun to write with. He's like. His turn of phrase and his kind of what he's thinking about. He's got a great imagination. And I love his stuff anyway. He's the only person I can think of who's close to Paul Heaton.
Right.
In his songwriting kind of ability, which is
a huge compliment in your eyes.
Compliment,
yeah. Understandably.
And so it was wonderful to actually get something good together, because it doesn't always work out that way, does it? It's quite hard to have egos in a room together and actually do something good. So to Matt Maltese, thank you, Matt. Yeah,
it works out really well. And I mean, I love it because it has this really atmospheric feel to it, the overheard conversation, the street sounds and that, which seems to tie in with the whole feel of the record, because there's always this kind of Jamie T ambiance or whatever to what you do, because there's so many layers to the recordings. There's all these little shouts sometimes, and then there's so much kind of. It sounds like you're surrounded by a gang of people who could often just be you, possibly multi-track, but it always sounds like there's this crew that surrounds you. Yeah, the Jamie T posse who are around, and similarly with this, because of the way you tell the story, it's not clear that you're the driver necessarily. You could be part of the crew. You could be the one who's picking up people in the back, and kind of going from one place to another.
It's my favourite song on the album, I think.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, I think so. It's the one songwriting wise I feel like I've moved on quite a lot in, and it feels kind of fresh to me.
Yeah, excellent. And we're going to hear it now. This is Jamie T with Thank You on X-Posure Radio X. It is Jamie T, Between the Rocks on X-Posure Radio X, the 9th song on Jamie's new album, The Theory of Whatever. I'm John Kennedy, and Jamie T is with me tonight, and you've taken the pace back up with Between the Rocks. What can you tell us about this song?
This is the first song I wrote with Hugo White. We were, thought about possibly working together, and this was the first day that we went into, or the first 2 days we had together, we came up with this. So I'm very fond of it because it ended up being a very fruitful relationship. It took us however many years together doing the album, probably 3 years together doing this album. So it's I've got fond memories of it because it's the beginning of a good working relationship.
Yeah.
And I can tell I'm overly trying to be me on it. It's like when you turn up for a first date and you dress the most like yourself. The coolest version of yourself.
So this is maximum Jamie T. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the coolest version of myself, but yeah, it's definitely wanting to work with Hugo and wanting to. I took the song home and wrote the lyrics all in one night. And if you think about it, folks, there's a lot of words in there, and there's probably about 3 A4s in there. I think I came back the next day with it. So I must have been being very wanting to impress, wanting to prove something to him, or wanting to work with me really. So and I think, and he's kind of said yes after that. It's been a love affair ever since.
That's great. And I mean, you've known him a long time, and the Maccabees kind of came up around the same time as you as well. So you've probably shared bills many times. And you're also from South London. You're both from South London. No.
We are, yeah. There's a lot of similarities in our life, really. Same with Orlando too, and Amphi, all of them. But we've had similar lives in the past, 20 years. Especially of our lives, so we're all quite close, I think, and because we've been through something that not many people have, really.
Yeah.
And we've also shared stages together and been fans of each other's work, so it's doubly disgusting.
Yeah, I guess that kind of being teenagers who make music, who suddenly have people listening to it and buying it and buying tickets to go and see you perform that music, it's quite. Without necessarily understanding how or why or how to behave or react.
Yeah, how to no media training and being flung in interviews everywhere. No understanding of even really how to play your instruments that well, and people turning up and and then going home and everyone expecting you to be normal. It's all very it's something that not many of people have been through, and so we're all quite close, I think, and linked in a certain way.
Yeah. Does the meaning of the song tie in with any of that at all?
I suppose it does. The song's kind of about it's about a long time in my life, really. It's kind of somehow a diary entry, I suppose. If any song is the song starts at the first lyrics about me having a backdrop saying money, money, money on it, and then it ends with me pretending that my record's gone platinum, and the song's a lie because I said it can turn platinum in a couple of days. That's not true. I didn't have a platinum album when I wrote that.
Right.
I just assumed that if I said it, everyone would believe it. Everyone's going to check up.
But hasn't
it has actually gone
platinum? Prevention
has
now gone platinum. Yeah. So if you say it, you've willed that into being. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, I like the way that you're able to play out fantasies in a way as you create. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, it's part of the fun. Yeah, absolutely. Like part of the fun because I have places in my mind and places in my history and my memories where I go to seem to be good places, to start, or good relationships I've had in my life, depending relationships, whatever, things that mean a lot to me and allow me to. Someone said once about Daniel Johnston. Johnston.
With a T, yeah.
He wrote songs about this one lady for the whole of his life, but his friend said about it is something along the lines of in his mind, she became a piece of furniture for him to hang his songs around. And so I totally understand that as a concept of things to hang your clothes on, your ideas on, and I love getting into the turn of phrase, and I love being caught up in imagination. I enjoy that immensely. That's kind of why that's the most fun I have with it, for sure.
Yeah,
but it's all I'm not talking about moonwalking. It's not a million miles away from anything I know, but it's a song. It's not a book.
Yeah.
It's not a memoir.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Or is it?
Keep them guessing, Jamie. That's always a good policy. Saber Tooth is the next song, and it's another rocker, really, with a great riff and a kind of. What is that bass sound? A kind of pulsing electronic bass thing.
Yeah.
What's going on here? How did this one come around?
I just worked out what an arpeggiator was for the first time, and I think that's kind of where it came from. I wrote that on a laptop at my kitchen table a few years ago, and had forgotten about it. And Hugo kind of flagged it as one that he really liked, and then did a wonderful job on it. I didn't have much to do with it after originally recording it. I recorded the original one, and Hugo kind of took it away and produced the hell out of it. And did a wonderful job of it. Seeing as that there were kind of seemingly at the end of the song, there's two choruses going on at once, and Hugo's kind of managed to make them both heard and not in each other's way, which is amazing. I don't know quite know how he's done that, but I put that one down to Hugo a lot. Really, I didn't have much to do with it after the one night on my laptop.
Yeah, and yet there's this amazing delivery of words, and the kind of tongue twisting lines, and kind of reveling in the tongue twisting nature of your lyrics. Often, do you have a lot of fun? I always think it seems like you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
just
do.
Coming up with these internal rhymes within a line, and
I do, yeah,
and just mucking about.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's mucking about. Absolutely, I enjoy the process of it. I really do. I've been doing a lot of writing recently on lyrics again, like I probably was back then, and I really enjoy it. It's my way of having fun. I don't have many hobbies, so that's probably what my hobby is.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, we're going to hear that hobby in action now. This is Jamie T with Saber Tooth on Radio X. You are listening to X-Posure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Jamie T with the 11th song on the new album, The Theory of Whatever, Talk is Cheap. And Jamie is here. He's talking us through it track by track. Another acoustic ballad that's quite heartbreaking, really, I think. Talk is Cheap. It's a heartbreaker.
Is it now?
Yeah, I think it is. I was torn apart. Torn apart by listening to that. I still think I'm in love with you. I'm rudderless. It's that's quite. Yeah, I suppose that's quite black and white, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it seems that way. On a casual listen.
Yes.
But and again, recorded in your simple setup at home.
That was recorded by Ollie Burden, who's a good friend of mine. Ollie, I started working with kind of vaguely late in the record, I suppose, and Ollie did a few tracks with me, and I think that came out of Ollie asking me how to write. He said, "How did I write my first album?" And which is a weird question, and said, "Can you show me how you wrote a song on your first album?" And I said, "Do you want to sit here and watch me do it?" He went, "Yeah." So I sat there and produced a song in a couple of hours, how I did it on my first album, which was really interesting and nice to do, and this song came from it, really. And
wow.
I ended up taking it down to acoustic in the end, but I remember it sounding like very inspired by like Beck, Montegilt era Beck.
Yeah.
So anyway, I took it down to acoustic in the end. I'm happy with the song. I sometimes wish it was a bit faster, but hey, I've got the rest of my life to play it live faster.
Yeah, exactly. Well, an interesting request, and it's great that became a positive thing. That you were a bit puzzled by the suggestion.
Yeah.
But you got a song out of it, which is
absolutely, and it was kind of nice because I think I was being a bit like, all right, well, I'll do it. I'll do it now, and was quite kind of actually kind of happy to do it, and something about it was was really nice and reminded me something maybe I had lost before, and kind of took me back to. It was surprising how quickly I knew what he meant to me, and I did it immediately. I knew how to do it, and it was like riding a bike,
Yeah, interesting. And so, I mean, Jamie, you said you don't have any hobbies, but you're pictured on a golf course on the cover of The Theory of Whatever. I've got to ask about that. So then there's lots of golfing photos to go with that.
Yeah, there is.
And because you're originally from Wimbledon, and I live in that part of the world and know Wimbledon Common, and there are a couple of golf courses on Wimbledon Common. So I immediately assumed when I saw these pictures that it's Jamie on the Common.
Yeah, right.
But is it?
Couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, could not be further from the truth, unfortunately. It's actually, I'm in Melbourne.
Wow.
Yes, in Australia.
So you've got, well, I mean, I know you don't live there now, but I was going to say you've got 2 golf courses on your doorstep, but you had to fly to the other side of the world to get a picture of you playing golf.
It feels very me, that.
And how and why? What's the reasoning behind that?
There's not really much of a reason. It's called fifth album syndrome, folks. We're starting to worry less about things. We had an original album cover and an original album title, and we weren't able to use it because we were for copyright reasons. And then I had not long to come up with an album title, and I had a song called The Theory of Whatever, and I thought The Theory of Whatever was quite a nice name because it kind of explains to me like the age I'm at really now and how long I've been doing this a long time, now. And so one thing I have found with getting a bit older is I'm more comfortable in my skin. I have a little bit less of a worry about what anyone thinks about anything, which is a nice comforting thing, but it also allows me to just say whatever. It's fine, so calling it The Theory or Whatever felt kind of apt. And then putting someone hitting a hole in one on the front cover just felt apt and funny and tongue-in-cheek. That's the reason why. And the reason I throw it Australia is because I can. All right?
Yeah, well, maybe after lockdown you thought, I'm going to go somewhere different.
I was like, I'm out of here. I'm doing press shots in Australia. Everyone's like, why? I was like, the sun's better in Australia. Hello.
I love that. Excellent. Old Republican is the next song on the record. What can you tell us about this?
Not much, to be honest. I can't even remember writing it. I remember having a long time with Yanis of Foles fame. Yanis was a big fan of the song. Yanis and I did a few versions of it and got lost in it a little bit. Yanis' version is very good. Very different to mine, and taught me a lot about songwriting, actually. But I went back to the original in the end because I was just happy with what's going down on it. It's one of my favourite tracks on the album, and I can't quite work out why. I really like to play it live and see how it works live, because it's acoustic, or at least it doesn't have drums for 3/4 of the song. So it would either kind of sink or float in that experience. But I'm quite interested to see. But that's all I can say about it.
Yeah. And how did the collaboration with Yanis come about?
I called out Yanis and said, "Look, I don't know you. But I feel like we should know each other, and it's strange that we don't know each other. So can I come and have a pint with you?" And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because I've written a couple of songs that sound like you, and I want to know if they're any good." And he was like, "All right." And we went and met up, and I remember being in the kitchen with him, and him kind of nicely saying that he didn't think the songs were very good. But we started a friendship there, and I've been friends ever since.
Yeah. What a nice story. That's really great.
Yeah. So, he's a great man.
Yeah, fantastic. And now we're going to hear the song. It is Old Republican. It is Jamie T on X-Posure, Radio X. It is Old Republican by Jamie T. It is the penultimate song on the new album, The Theory of Whatever. You're listening to X-Posure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy. Jamie has been here tonight talking us through the whole thing, track by track. Old Republican, with kind of an involvement with Yanis, this kind of all-star cast that you've kind of rallied around yourself over the last few years in a way. I love it. It's great. It's like a quite a big cast, and yet ultimately at the core of it, it's just you on your own.
Yeah, it's a bit. Look, it's a nice thing to talk about, because obviously it gives it some context and everyone kind of have a chat about it. But it is just these are just, honestly, these are my friends. These are the closest people in my life. This is not a cast. This is not really anything but. I'll talk to all these people in every week of my life. I have been for the last few years. So these are just my friends.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit like, ooh, but it's just, this is...
Yeah. But I think people like that. I think that we all have the idea that just as in the old Beatles film, when they all walk into through separate doors into the one house. In my wonderful world of pop, all my favourite artists are all friends in one big massive friendship group, and they all hang out together all the time, and kind of you're kind of living and breathing that.
I am. No. And don't get me wrong, everyone, I'm annoying everyone while I'm doing it. Right?
Excellent. 50,000 Unmarked Bullets is the title of the next song, the closing song on the album, and you turn to piano. for this.
Yes.
And again,
the real heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's great. And now for my last song.
It is a bit like that, isn't it? Oh, God, remember me like this.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, it's a really interesting song, though, in terms of the stuff you discuss in it. You know, there are big references to, you know, you mentioned Russia again, but also this place in Switzerland.
Gulicam.
Yeah. I had to look that up. I'm not that knowledgeable.
Yeah, I know. I had to too. You worry about that.
But yeah, so there's kind of like a character in 50,000 Unmarked Bullets, I think. You know, this person and what they're going through. But they've kind of got probably a different life experience to you or I, maybe.
Well, it's based on Kim Jong-il or
Wow.
whichever the younger one is. I always forget which one's which. Blame that on my dyslexia type folks rather than my lack of thought on it. But it's actually about someone being taken, you know, to the Hague. It's basically it's a tongue-in-cheek musical about being taken to the Hague for. Well, how hard must it be for a despot's son? You know what I mean? You grow up in Switzerland, you know, in some baccalaureate school, you know. You fall in love with some girl, but then, you know, at some point you've got to go home and murder your uncles, you know, to get, like, you know, power or whatever. You know, so it's like a tongue-in-cheek idea that someone's been, like, taken to the Hague for a war crime, but they're more worried about the fact that all the kind of, they've always had bugs in their hotel rooms when they've been younger, you know, so they're more worried about how it's coming off to their old girlfriend, you know, in baccalaureate school, and how they feel about that. So the song's quite complicated.
Wow, that's amazing, though. I love that. I mean, what a great and interesting idea. And who would necessarily try and be sympathetic to a despot's son?
It's just called songwriting. Or is it? No, it's you know, like. It's a Bruce Springsteen thing, isn't it? Where, you know, I love about Bruce Springsteen when she does often where you watch him kind of make you walk in someone's shoes. Actually, even if it's someone to make you feel sorry for someone or make you have empathy for someone who's an animal, you know, who's a complete animal. And there's something as a songwriter tool in that is worth exploring, because if you can find empathy for someone and walk in their shoes, then maybe you can have some humanity through it. And there's something Bruce Springsteen does very well about that. I'm not saying I do. I'm saying I just write silly songs about dictators that are a bit rubbish. But I enjoyed the process of it very much so. Yeah. And you're right, it's a good end to the album. A piano song at the end.
Yeah, completely. And I think... you know, you do yourself down, because clearly you're a master craftsman, and it's been so good to hear about the songs tonight, Jamie. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me, John. Thank you.
Great to see you. And here's the last from Jamie T in tonight's show. This is 50,000 Unmarked Bullets on X-Posure Radio X.
Radio X.